What's up, my legends? Coming back to you again with another video. Today, I want to talk about some tips that I would give to beginner artists. Maybe tips that I would give myself from, I don't know, 10 years ago. When it comes to doing art, I think art is romanticized a lot by a lot of people. It's a wonderfully creative skill set that a lot of people would like to have, but they just don't know how to approach it in a way that lets them achieve their goals, or they set their goals a little too high. So I want to make a video giving out a few tips talking about stuff like that, and to maybe ease you in on your art journey and hopefully maybe give you a little bit more confidence in your progress, and maybe set some realistic expectations for you, and maybe give you some tips that will help you improve at a better pace and let you reach your small goals faster than you would just blindly going into it. I don't know how many tips I'm gonna give because this video I'm setting it at around 13 minutes, so I'm just gonna ramble and see how many I end up giving, and I'll number it in post. But here we go. Okay, so number one, set realistic expectations for yourself and create incremental goals. I know that this is a bit of a generic advice, but I think I have a bit of a different twist to it than what people usually give, right? Because what people usually tell you when it comes to developing some sort of long-term skill, right, is that they're going to tell you to break it down into smaller goals that you can comfortably achieve and give yourself a timeline, etc., etc. My advice isn't necessarily that. Right? Because when you're a beginner, you very likely have an artist that you idolize or an artist that you love and you want to become or get to their skill level, right? So I guess for me, that would probably be someone like Sakimi, I suppose. But if I were to set goals to be closer to Sakimi's skill level, starting from fucking zero, like, bro, what the fuck? That's like 10 plus years of practice to even get somewhat like in the ballpark of being near her skill level. So if you set a goal like that, that's pretty fucking insane, right? So I don't think that's a very realistic goal to set, because it's gonna span 10 years and it's gonna make it seem like insurmountable, right? Because who knows what you're gonna do 10 years from now, right? Not everyone can draw for 10 fucking plus years, or not everyone can commit the amount of time to reach that skill level. It's just insane. So my advice in regards to that would be to set goals that make you happy and set goals that you can do. I'm not saying to not dream, right? But I feel like having lofty goals like that ends up just burning people out most of the time. Not everyone can be fucking Sakimi level, right? That's just the truth of it. So what I think beginner artists should do is aim for something more attainable. So for example, if I wanted to paint like Sakimi and I'm a complete beginner, maybe the goal that I set would be to trace her drawings and make it look good. Just trace her drawings and make it look as close to her line art as possible, right? That's one of the goals that you can set for yourself. And then slowly, maybe you can copy the line art instead of tracing it, so that you can get satisfaction from your hands having, good enough dexterity and control of the pencil or pen or whatever tool you're using, and being able to replicate, their art, right? So I wholeheartedly suggest setting small, incremental, attainable goals like that, rather than having some crazy, lofty shit, especially when you're starting from zero, right? Which I suppose would probably lead into tip number 2, which is do not be afraid of copying or tracing, or do not be afraid of stealing stuff from other artists for the sake of practice. Now, obviously, depending on what you're copying or tracing or whatever, you probably don't want to claim full credit for it, right? You don't want to say, oh, I fucking made this up from my fucking brain. But just for the sake of practicing and getting used to the process of drawing, absolutely fucking go for it. Do not be discouraged by all these people telling you that tracing is like this fucking crazy sin. I think ultimately tracing can develop pretty bad habits. And when I was learning, I didn't really do a whole lot of tracing. I was always more of someone that copied. Because copying is definitely way better than tracing, because when you copy, you train your eye to be able to replicate shapes that you see, and it trains you to convert kind of like your understanding of an image. Because copying, you know, that's observational drawing, right? It trains the ability for you to convert an image that you see, and it forces you to replicate it with nothing but your brain translating that image onto a piece of paper, and your hand, obviously. And that's a very powerful skill that goes a long way no matter what level you are, right? Whereas tracing is a bit of a crutch, but at the very least, you are still training your hands to be able to create the piece, right? So tracing kind of removes the thinking part of copying. So copying is something that is incredible at all skill levels, and you should do it. But just be wary about how you're copying, and do not claim that you create the piece purely from your brain, right? Because, you know, if you go on Twitter, there's a lot of artists out there that just copies a photocopy, right? And they maybe replace the head with an anime girl head. And, you know, shit like that will get them fucking like 50,000 likes. So at every single level, copying is a skill that goes far. So start copying, because drawing from imagination is insane, right? And I suppose this also goes into referencing, right? Do not be afraid of using references. I know it's a really romanticized thing, right, for an artist to be able to just draw everything from their brain due to having, you know, just due to them having incredible knowledge and muscle memory. But if you can't do it, then don't fucking do it. Then if you can't attain that level of skill just yet, use all the fucking help you can get to create the perfect image in your head. In this very video, you know, when I was drawing the face, you can see me referencing my favorite art style from one of my favorite video games, Dungeon Fighter, right? That's the art style I want to replicate, so I'm going to reference it. Like, why the fuck would I not? You know, will people take me a little less seriously if they saw that I reference? Maybe, but it's just referencing, you know? And it's gonna help me create a way more polished and impressive final piece. So I rather admit to referencing and use references than to create a subpar piece. It's that simple. The end results matter a lot more than the process. You know, obviously don't fucking cheat and just trace the whole fucking thing. But use whatever references or tools to get to your desired piece and get to your desired final quality, right? Because artists like Ilya Kushinov, he got in deep shit for straight up copying compositions. But guess what? He's still one of the largest fucking Patreon artists out there and one of the most famous fan artists. Even though, you know, deep down in his fucking core, he borderline cheated for a lot of his earlier work, right? He stole entire compositions and color schemes and lighting schemes and then just slightly changed it for his art style. Again, don't fucking plagiarize and just steal entire fucking things. And, you know, it is a bit of a blurred line, and it is difficult to tell sometimes. But don't be afraid to do it just for the sake of doing it academically. Maybe for maybe for more personal pieces that you want to do to test your skills, maybe tone it a little back on some of the references. But you will improve a lot if you start using references. And I see a lot of new artists just be too afraid of doing that when they would benefit tremendously from it. So definitely use all the resources you can, and don't be afraid to reference. And now I guess I have time for one more tip. And I guess for this final tip, it's kind of also something that adds to my previous tips in terms of referencing and copying to study. Do not be afraid to model your art style after established artists. Because no matter how closely your art style resembles another artist, it will never be identical to what they do. Because people just have a different fundamental understanding about anatomy, lighting, proportions, etc. So even if you try your damnedest to copy another artist, it is very unlikely that you will get exactly what they have. Now, of course, once you reach a certain skill level, it becomes a lot easier to copy certain art styles. Like, as you can see in some of my previous videos. You know, for things like the Asanagi one, that one wasn't so bad. And you know, obviously, they weren't perfect, great fucking copies. But I've definitely had people tell me, like, some of my pieces, oh, that looks kind of like what Tsukimi does. And it's like, well, yeah, I based it off of her art style. When you base your art style off of another artist, it makes it so much easier to streamline your learning process because you have a perfect end goal right there, right? I know I said earlier to not set lofty goals, so you don't have to set a lofty goal. You don't have to be Sakimi, or you don't have to be, you know, fucking Miura, right? The artist that did One Punch Man, because they're fucking legends, right? But, you know, maybe you can set your goal to someone that's a little bit, you know, maybe their art style's a lot more attainable, right? So having someone to model your art style after and develop your skills after will streamline your learning process so much, because now you have, you know what your end goal is. You know how you want your lines to look. You know how your colors are supposed to be. So you don't have to waste all of this time just practicing a whole bunch of other shit if you don't have the time to. Obviously, fundamentals are extremely important, right? And having strong fundamentals will carry you along no matter what art style you want to do. But in terms of things like anime art styles, there's a lot of great anime artists out there with subpar fundamentals that got by with their style alone, right? So for example, if you look at something like Panty and Stocking, like, are you gonna tell me that the artists that did those characters studied fucking hours and hours of anatomy and figure drawing? You can't convince me that. There's no way, right? So if you know, and a lot of artists in the animation industry, they're not amazing, you know, realism illustrators. They're just not. But they create some of the most soulful and attractive and, you know, memorable cartoon characters in the fucking world, despite having no fundamentals, right? You look at something like Cartoon Network cartoons, like, and, you know, the quote-unquote Cal Arts art style. You're gonna tell me these people know how to do, like, perfect anatomy and you know, the realistic life drawing? That's gonna be a big fat no for a lot of them. So if you pick the right art style to study and learn, you can forego a lot of fundamentals, and it'll help you create absolutely beautiful and impressive work without needing the time requirement to, you know, compete with some of these more fundamentally sound artists. And that's my tips for today. I might do more. Hopefully that helps somebody out there. I know I'm not like the biggest expert when it comes to art myself, but I spend a lot of time like doing this shit, so, you know, even if I'm not a professional, hopefully someone got some help out of this. This is just kind of my perspective, and it's helped me do my work and improve. You know, we all have a long way to go, so hopefully, you know, this helped you a little bit in your art journey. And, you know, as always, thanks for watching. Hopefully I can fucking finish this next week. This is taking forever. Yeah, I'll see you next time.